tell you about both of those pieces here today. I just wanted to show you our authors and our team members that we have. So we have a team of 10 dedicated individuals. Everyone has a little different specialty and interest. So you might look through the screen and see some names or see some faces that potentially you're familiar with. So we're spread out across the state. And like Denise had mentioned, we have been working on this for quite a while. So we usually start working in the fall to have our program ready for all of you and Nebraska Extension staff by the first part of February. So this is the first presentation that we have done this winter that has all the pieces completely ready to go. So we're excited to share that with you. Since this year's theme is Tails and Tales, and you just saw who all of our team members are, just like people, we know or animals are just like people, and when they work together, they're better together. And Nebraska Extension is better when we work together with our local libraries because we can spread programming across the state. So to kick off our time together, I wanted to share a book that I really enjoy and probably many of you are familiar with. It's called PACS, Strength in Numbers. Anybody familiar with that book? I see Sally's hand going up in the air. So what's really fun about this book is it goes through different animals and you learn different animal groupings names and discover what they do really well together. So one page that comes to my mind is frogs. And a grouping of frogs is called an army. And together they sing. And so it's just a really fun book that you can incorporate into your programming when you're working with children. And it also teaches them a lot of great vocabulary words. So we're going to test your vocabulary words just for fun this morning. And we're going to see if you know the names of different groupings of animals. So if you have your chat box open, that would be perfect. I want you to type the number in the chat box that you think represents or corresponds this animal grouping. So we'll start off with, what do you think a group of jellyfish is called? A cluster, a tribe, a pandemonium, a caravan, or a smack? Go ahead and make your prediction and type it in the chat box. All right. I see number 1 for clusters. I see a number 5. And if you guessed a number 5, you are correct. So a grouping of jellyfish is called a smack, which is fun. Here's another one. This is probably my favorite. What's a group of parrots called? I see a couple predictions. 3s and 2s and 1s. All right, a group of parrots is actually called a pandemonium. So that's a fun word that young children would love to repeat and be able to use in their vocabularies as well. Here's our next one. How about a group of camels? What word is a group of camels? Lots of 4s. You are correct. It's a caravan. How about a group of goats? I'm seeing 2s and 1s. A group of goats is called a tribe. And our last one is a group of spiders. All right, there's 1s coming down my screen. So a group of spiders is called a cluster. So just like that brought a smile to many of our faces, children love to learn new vocabularies and learn new facts about animals as well. So if you have any other cool groupings that you know of animals and you want to share that in the chat box, feel free to go ahead and type it in. I see Krista mentioned something about audio. Is my audio coming through all right for most of you? Okay, I see a couple thumbs up. All right, thank you. Well, we're going to keep moving forward. So the rest of our time is going to be spent talking about those 2 portions that we have of our summer reading program brought to you by Nebraska Extension. Before we get started, how many of you have partnered with Nebraska Extension either for summer reading, after school, or any programs like that. If you've partnered, do you want to maybe turn your, or just show me with your hands? You can give me a thumbs up if you've partnered with us before. Okay, I see a couple people. All right. So if you haven't partnered with us, we're really excited to share some of our resources, and maybe we can develop some new partnerships with you. So today you will gain a little better understanding for the different components that we have of our summer reading program. And hopefully you'll have that opportunity to brainstorm and develop a plan where you can incorporate these resources into your library's summer programming as well. So with that, I'm gonna kick it over to Cam, and she's gonna tell you a little bit more about our K-6 program that we have.
Awesome. Thank you, Jackie. Good morning, everyone. So happy that you could all, or that you invited us to join you today. Like she said, my name is Cam and I work with 4-H, particularly in Buffalo County. And basically the slide you see here is all about our mission. So our mission with this program, the K-6 curriculum, is to engage youth in extended 4-H learning opportunities through the collaborative summer library program. So everything that we're doing in these lessons relates directly to books with the same theme that you're all using this summer. Go ahead, Jackie. So as you can see here, our program goals are to provide 4-H youth development opportunities to youth. So everything in these lessons relates directly back to our priority area in 4-H, which is STEM learning. And as you can see here, we want to offer these educational resources to you, the librarians, as well as youth development professionals, early childhood professionals, and parents as well. And it is our hope that at the end of some of these activities and lessons, there is a spark or an interest in 4-H programs. So a lot of these different activities, youth could actually leave your program and enter them into the county fair and exhibit these items if that's of interest. And there at the bottom, another goal is to provide early childhood professionals and parents with storybook guides to support literacy development, enhance relationships, and to make that connection with your local library. And as far as our overview goes, we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about this, but this is kind of just our overview here. You know, like we said, we're going to match our curriculum to your theme. And we have a series of 4 customizable lessons. That's that K-6 part. And as Jackie and Lynn will be talking a little bit more about this later, but the early childhood component is 8 imagination guides. And like Jackie said, that's actually new for this team, a little bit newer. So really looking forward to seeing how those can be implemented as well. And our goal with this curriculum is that it can be available to libraries, after school programs, 4-H summer camps, schools, youth development professionals, early childhood professionals, parents, and more. So as you can see, we wanted to create programming that was very specific, again, to your theme, to STEM learning, but also easy to differentiate into whatever environment you find yourself in with youth, whether that's in person or maybe even virtual. And we also have evaluations attached to these lessons for youth, as well as the presenters and teachers using this curriculum. And talking more specifically about the K-6 curriculum here, we have 4 different themes, and we're going to kind of go through those and explain some different activities that align with these different lessons: animal adaptations, heads and tails, your money story, service animals, and farm tales. So let's dig into those together. So I'm going to walk you through this lesson. This lesson in particular, I actually wrote with a colleague named Tiffany. It's all about animal adaptations. And I want you all to take your beautiful librarian hats that you wear every day and maybe sit it off to the side, and then grab your youth learning hat and put it on and put yourself in the shoes of the youth that you work with. And I noticed, you know, Sally has her hat on. Several friends actually have hats on, which is kind of fun, but just put yourself in the shoes of youth learning this programming, and I'm going to ask you a couple questions. So the very first part of animal adaptations and the very first part of every lesson is a series of opening questions. This is where we start to get the youth curious and kind of gain their spark so they can get a feel for what we're learning about today. So as you can see in this picture, there appears to be an animal. And what do we notice about this animal specifically? Go ahead and type in the chat. What do we notice about this animal? We might notice its environment. We might notice its colors. Sally says it blends in. Tony says blends in with its surroundings. Absolutely. So when we look at this situation where, like they said, it blends in, what makes this camouflage pattern effective? Since this owl is blending into its environment, what makes it effective? Go ahead and type in the chat. And again, these are just questions we would be asking youth in person. We'd call on them, have them raise their hands. Go ahead and type in the chat. What makes a camouflage pattern effective? Stephanie says muted colors. Absolutely. You can see there kind of these neutral colors, these shades and these tones. Wilson says a great defense. Okay. So maybe the way that their body is positioned in the environment. It says here patterns. Absolutely. The patterns of the owl's exterior, its feathers. Absolutely. Protection. It's all about protection. That's right. Jackie, go ahead and go to the next text there. So as we have this conversation with youth, these opening questions, we're then going to ask them to select the animal coloration cards. So these are all included in these lessons for you to print out. They're pretty simple. You print them out. I believe there's 4 to a page. So you'll just need to cut them out and they're about this big. So youth will get examples of all sorts of different animals that have adaptive coloration, specifically camouflage, and they're going to choose an example that they particularly like. No specific reason. Maybe some youth will just choose an animal and they'll automatically identify with it. So that's what you'll kind of find with these lessons is that youth automatically identify with animals. And I think that that is so special. So once they've identified that animal, they're going to examine that animal's coloration and its habitat. And they'll write down what they notice about the animal's coloration that helps it blend in to its environment, like you all just said in the chat. So at that point, you'd prompt students to think about the formal elements of camouflage. And some of our friends in the chat even mentioned formal elements of art without even noticing it. We had a friend, I don't know if I can pronounce their name correctly, but they said patterns. Now that is specifically an element of camouflage that helps animals. And then we'll talk more about shape and color and all those things. So that's kind of our first activity there. And as we move on, we're going to talk more about how not only do animals use camouflage, but humans do as well. So I would pull up this picture and I would ask youth, and I'm asking you all today, go ahead and type in the chat, what is this human doing? We can use our visual thinking strategies and think to ourselves, first and foremost, what do we see? What do you see? Go ahead and type in the chat. Or what inferences can we make? First message says scouting, maybe? What are they scouting? PC Library says photographer of wildlife. Photography, taking wildlife photos, blending in with the field. All right, so they answered my question. They said animals, right? I always ask students, why do you think that? Or why do you say that? Can you expand on that more? And then they really think about their word choices at that point. So really good comments there. Go ahead, Jackie. So as you can see, this is the point where we let students know that now that we've kind of analyzed effective camouflage in nature, we're going to be designing our own camouflage fabric to be worn in a specific environment of their choosing. So as you can see in the picture, this person has a very specific type of camouflage to be sort of in this habitat. And to me, if I'm using my visual thinking strategies, I would assume that this habitat is somewhat near water because you can kind of see some of those dried up plants around him, and those patterns are sort of copied there on his camouflage, not only on just his jacket, but also on his hat and also on his camera. And so we talk a little bit about how that camouflage can be used for humans. So now at this point, we're going to create our own swatch. So as you can see here, I have a youth with the example of this project to kind of visualize it for you all. Students will then make a swatch. So we explain that a swatch is a small example of a fabric pattern. They'll be using origami paper. I recommend origami paper because it comes in these perfect sizes, but if you have construction paper, you can use that as well. But here's where the STEAM challenge comes in. They will get to use one background color As you can see in the picture, my friend has yellow. That's their chosen background color. And then they'll get 3 additional colors from which they will cut out shapes to apply to the background to get that swatch to blend in to a chosen habitat. So they'll get these habitat background cards. Again, that's all included in the lesson. You can just print them out for youth. They'll choose one of those habitats. In this picture, this youth chose a coral reef. And at that point, they will start to design a camouflage fabric to be worn in this environment. And then at the very end, we have a design review. This is very important in the world of STEM, where we're adding the art into it. It's important to kind of generalize and process what we've all just done. So we'll compare our work to each other, not in a way that's negative, not in a way that says mine is better than yours, but in a way that acknowledges that with STEM, there's always something that we can do more of, something that we can do better, something we can work on. And that's actually the motto of 4-H, to make the best better. So that's always what we're encouraging youth. You know, you're never completely finished. There's always something you can do to improve in your creative process. So as you can see here in these photos, that image of the coral reef is right there in the middle, that big habitat card, and all around it are different swatches. And so at this point, we would say, where does this swatch fit in the best? Because you can see in this coral reef, there's some parts that are more brown, some that are more light in the tones of the colors there. So we'll discuss that and we'll say, now that you've seen other people's examples, what would you like to add to your swatch? What could make it blend in better? So that's just an example and some visuals for you folks to kind of see what it looks like to bring one of these lessons into your classroom. So now we're going to go through the other themes just very briefly, and I'm going to explain how these themes relate to Tales and Tales, but are also different than what we just learned with Adaptations. So our next lesson is at your service. This is all about service animals and the power that animals have to actually serve humans and help humans. So throughout this lesson, there are several activities that talk about this. One that I think is specifically interesting to me, it's called Build the Perfect Helper. And in this activity, youth are going to use junk drawer items to construct the perfect animal helper. What does that look like? What problem could they solve? So most of us in our lives, we have a person in our lives who lives with a disability. And I think it's important to talk about this. You know, sometimes people think it's all hush hush, don't talk about people with disabilities. Well, in reality, it's more important for youth to learn about those experiences and learn from those experiences that other people have. And I'm saying that because I'm a person with a disability. I live with diabetes. And so I kind of talk about specifically how you can get an animal, a dog, to smell yourself, and they can tell what your blood sugar is based on their sense of smell. So we talk about that a little bit more specifically. And with the Perfect Helper activity, they're able to identify the problem. So the problem is that this person with diabetes has blood sugar that fluctuates. Well, how can we solve this problem by using an animal and their sense, some of their senses, I should say. And so that's that activity. And that's just kind of a taste of that lesson. So we'll go ahead and move on to the next one. This one is Tales from Animal Tales. So we're kind of playing on words here with this activity. This is more specifically focused on farm animals and different tales and how they work with animals. So how do they communicate with their tails? We'll kind of talk more about that. And what do they use their tails for otherwise? Well, some animals use it to balance. Some use it to manage pests. And so we kind of talk about how that translates into the human world as well, with body language and how we communicate. And that brings in some of those social emotional concepts as well. And then our final lesson here, and they don't have to be in this specific order. You can do these lessons in whatever order you'd like because they're different themes. But this one specifically is Heads and Tails. So this talks about financial literacy. And so it brings in, heads and tails, kind of that theme here. One of the activities is called Needs and Wants, and it outlines how we can help youth to learn the importance of prioritizing money and budgeting, and how the needs and the wants of our lives can dictate how we use our money in the future. And so that's kind of a fun activity to help youth realize, maybe the newest game or the newest toy probably isn't a need in our life. There are some other things that we need to be spending our money on. And it really helps those youth to empathize empathize specifically with their parents or the trusted adults in their lives who spend the money for them at this point. So that's a really fun activity to get them thinking about financial literacy. So that was me talking very, very quickly about these different lessons, but there are multiple activities per lesson. So as you're using the heads and tails lesson specifically, there's a bunch of different activities you can choose from in your specific scenarios. So I went through that really quick, but I probably took too much time, huh, Jackie?
You were perfect. You were perfect. Thank you for giving us that overview of the K through 6 portion of our summer reading program, the portion that I mentioned we have been doing since 2014. So what Lynn and I are going to talk about for the next few minutes, we want to talk about our early childhood component that we just started. We actually piloted it last year. It was a COVID year, so we weren't able to kick it off probably as much as we would have liked to, but we're going full force this year. And then after we talk about our imagination guides, we are going to take you out to our website because Cam has shared all these resources. She said, this is it, you can download these. These are on a sheet of 4, you can print them out. I want to show you where all of that stuff is so you can have it here today. So like I mentioned, last year we did pilot the STEM Reading Connections program for early childhood. And what we did is we really targeted early childhood professionals and parents because we realized that we have great programming going on at our libraries during the summer, but not all kids can attend. Maybe they are in childcare and can't come to the library. Maybe distance is a factor. So there's many different factors. And we thought, what can we do to help these children feel a part of the summer reading program? And then when they have the opportunity to come to the library, they feel like they belong. And I know that I have the opportunity to go to many different libraries throughout the summer, and I can tell instantly the summer reading theme when I walk in. And so but it's because I have that awareness. So since I have that awareness of the program, if we can help make parents and children who maybe don't have that awareness aware, when they walk in, they're going to feel that sense of belonging as well. So like I mentioned, last year we tied into your theme, Imagine Your Story, and we focused on fairy tales. And so the really great thing about the summer reading program is it builds and we archive all of our resources. And any guides that we have for storybooks, just because they don't fit with this year's theme doesn't mean they don't have a purpose or a use. So they're still available to you. So I'll show you where these storybook guides are on the website in just a little bit. But here's the new storybook guides or imagination guides that we created this year. We have tried to transition the wording to imagination guides because we have a lot of STEM programming. And so we like using imagination over storybook a little bit better. But like I said, last year we rolled it out, but this year we're really going full force. So these 8 storybook guides have been piloted in 14 different locations. So we're really excited with that. And there's been 187 different youth who've been able to experience these imagination guides in some of the different activities. So we have had them done virtually. They've been done in libraries. They've been done in school settings. So they've been piloted in a variety of different settings. And those teachers, librarians have sent us back feedback. And so we've been able to kind of tweak and redesign our imagination guides to make sure that they're the most useful to all of you and to parents as well. So what we're going to do is I'm going to let Lynn talk just a little bit about using animals and nature and what the storybook or the imagination guides, I need to change my language as well, what they include.
Okay, thank you, Jackie. So why using animals? So we know that E.O. Wilson is an American biologist and naturalist, and he's done a lot of work in educating the public on biodiversity and conservation. And so he's presented the term biophilia hypothesis, which suggests that humans have naturally an affinity towards other living things. And this is especially true with children, and it offers the wonderful opportunity to connect with living things in their environment. So in developing this resource, we wanted to build on this idea and give child care providers and families with something to help them in this exploration. We know that animals are important to children. with the themes. Jackie talked about how they just feel like they fit in, or they feel like they belong at the library when they see your theme approaching. So animals are important. They naturally, children are drawn to animals. If you've ever noticed children in the company of animals, they're like a magnet, just drawn to them. They typically don't have fear towards animals. And so these connections with animals help children build connections with their environment and also develop conservation attitudes that remain throughout their adulthood. Animals give children that sensory experience as well, through sight, touch, smell, and sound. So we also know that the connection to nature and animals also encourages social emotional skills. Animals can be used in a variety of therapies to help humans build emotional and physical skills. And additionally, caring for animals can foster empathy and affections, nonverbal communication, and their expression of feelings. Just like humans, animals react to their environment. Animals have affect, and they react to children. So for example, when children run at an animal, the animal might startle. And so that indicates to the child that they need to be more calm when approaching that animal. And so children will actually eventually begin to pick up on these cues from animals with repeated interactions. So there are many research articles on information about using animals with children. We highlight a book, Connecting Animals and Children in Early Childhood by Patty Bornselli as well. Okay, Jackie. So this is an example of the format of our imagination guides. And you can see on the front is a featured story along with some conversation starters. The STEM connection activity is the main activity that goes along with the guide, and it's explained in great detail. And then on the right side, you can see on the back of the guides, the lesson extensions. And these extension activities focus on creative arts, music, movement, and they also include sensory activities. And this, in the column on the right side, there's a background information about the program, and it lists our website, and it also includes related readings, both fiction and nonfiction. So this would actually be a great way to have, a great thing to have on hand in your library for all patrons, or to include in a take and make it kit, for example. And so they're very reader and user friendly as well. Okay, Jackie. Here you can see our infographics. This year we wanted to emphasize the importance of family connections with childcare and childcare providers. So we developed the infographic family fun guides to encourage the continuation of learning at home. So each infographic responds or corresponds to a specific habitat. The nature connection provides a simple activity to get families outdoors or bring the indoors in. And additionally, there are several quick facts about each habitat and a list of resources for families to learn more and to find out extra activities on that habitat. So these infographics can be printed or digitally shared with family and are also available on our website. Okay, back to Jackie.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Lynn. So you've seen what the imagination guides look like. You've seen what the infographics have looked like. How can you implement them in your setting? So there's a variety of different ways, and I have discovered that just from the pilot project. So there's a picture of a library in Northeast Nebraska. That's where these pictures come from, and they've been using the different imagination guides as a part of their story time. So the one specifically in these pictures show that she was using the polar bear, what do you hear? And so this was the one that relates to the tundra habitat. And the STEM activity for that particular lesson is where they're learning about blubber and how blubber keeps animals warm, specifically polar bears. And the really fun activity with this one is where you're able to put some Crisco inside 2 Ziploc bags, and then you have the children put their hand in one bag that has the blubber and then one without, and they put them in cold water. And in this particular library, there was a lot of snow on the ground at the time, so they put snow inside their bowls as well. And so I'm going to play just I think it's about 11 seconds. And now that I say this, I'm wondering if I shared my sound. Let me just make a quick change. All right, so you should be able to hear this short video.
All right, there you go. Now stick your hand over here. Can you tell the difference?
Get one and cold.
That one's cold and this one. That blubber really works, doesn't it? Okay.
So I think that's just a fun video for you could see how quickly that little girl took her hand out of that cold environment. And it's just a great hands-on STEM activity to understand how animals in a tundra habitat stay warm. The other thing that they do at this particular library is then they have stations. And so they used one of the stations to be their and did their creative arts activity. And what they were doing was they were painting with a fork and using white paint, and then they created their own polar bear. So ultimately, it's up to you. Cam mentioned the other lessons are customizable. These are customizable as well, whatever works best for your patrons and in your environment. So I would encourage you to check out the STEM Imagination Guides and pick out the different stories and activities that speak to you and to your personality and to the personality of the little ones that you're working with. Then the best thing to do is determine your time frame, or if you're going to have a rotation schedule. I know that some libraries choose to do it more as a family night. And so they might choose to do 5 or more of the imagination guides, and they might have them rotate from station to station. If you're choosing to do something like that, that is great. I would just encourage you to recruit some volunteers to help you. And the best part about that is you shouldn't have to do a lot of explaining, because you can hand them the imagination guide and it gives them the directions right there. The supplies, the activities, most of you may have many of them. Otherwise, they're really easy to get, and they're not very costly. So once you gather that and decide on kind of your layout and implementation that works best for you, we just encourage you to have a lot of fun.
All right, there you go.
So if you're thinking, this all sounds great, but I feel like I need a little bit more information. I understand maybe what the tundra lesson includes, but I don't know what's involved in the other 7 imagination guides. We are having a training where we're going specifically into each of the storybook guides and looking at the STEM activities, the creative arts, the music and movement activities, and utilizing the tips and tricks that the 14 individuals that have already piloted the lessons have told us, so we can pass on those ideas to you. So if you're interested in being a part of that or learning a little bit more, I'm going to go ahead and copy that link and put it in the chat box. This training is specifically for librarians, so it's specifically for you across the state. So feel free to jump on. You'll have a chance to have looked through the storybook guides prior to this and jump on and come with any questions that you might have as well. So with that being said, I do want to switch out and show you where all these resources are stored. So we have a really great website. And I'm going to show you that on my screen. And then I'll also copy it and put it in the chat box so you have that as well. So here's what our website looks like. It's for you, it's for your patrons, it's for anybody that you work with. And both elements of the summer reading program are stored on this site. I want you to notice we are doing 2 additional trainings. So we have one training specifically for librarians for all of you, but we also have a training for early childhood professionals and parents. And so we're offering those the day after your training. So the library specific training is on the 21st, and then on the 22nd, we're having another couple of trainings or opportunities for people to learn more. If you're not available on the 21st, definitely jump on either of the 2 on the 22nd. We'd love to have you join us as well. So as you scroll down on our website, it just gives you information about what this program is, and then it showcases each of the 8 storybook guides. So in order to get those resources, all you have to do is download this STEM Imagination Guide. Because we are evaluating this program and we want to make sure that we're able to kind of track who's using it and to make it better each year, there's going to just be a few short questions that you answer. Once you answer those few short questions, you'll be taken to a folder that's actually going to have all 8 of the storybook guides and the infographics for parents, even if you only were interested in, let's say, the oceans. So if you click only oceans because that's what you're most interested in, that's fine. But just know that you'll have access to all of them once you answer those few simple questions, and feel free to download them then to your computer so that you have them. So once you're able to do that and see the early childhood pieces, and then if you keep scrolling down, I had mentioned that this program is just going to grow. And so we archived all of last year's guides as well. So if you click on that red button and you ever want to do some story times or some theme programming in your library, we have great guides that go with the 8 fairy tales as well. If you click back to the main site, if you just scroll down a little bit further, it shares the 4 main lessons that Cam talked about earlier. There's also 2 other additional pieces on here. We have created Clover Kid Cam. So Clover Kids are youngest 4-Hers, ages 5 to 8. So if you would like to do more of a camp setting and make something for that patrons or young children could exhibit at the fair, that's an option. And then we also have a program that's targeted towards 4-Hers for workshops. And that's where they're going to be learning about child development and using some blocks to make a game where they're matching animal tracks and animals. So those are 2 additional things that are on this website. Same concept to get all of those resources that Cam talked about. Simply click on the red button, just a couple of questions because we're really curious about the reach of our program. And then you'll be taken to a document, and I would encourage you to save that on your computer. So as I went through that, does anyone have any specific questions about the resources or about the website?
Jackie, this is Denise. Now this is out on the internet. It's on the open web. It's not restricted in any way to simply people in Nebraska, right? Anyone can use it?
That's right. Anyone can use it. And actually last year, I think the program did get beyond our borders to maybe 6 additional states.
Okay.
So yes, this is a program, just since the theme is broad, anyone who has the interest in doing programming with youth related to this theme is encouraged to use it. Any other questions? So I guess we have a question for all of you before we wrap up. We'd love to have you unmute or in the chat box share. How do you think that you could implement the 4-H STEM Reading Connection resources into your summer programming? Feel free to type those ideas in the chat, or you can unmute yourself. We'd love to hear your voices. Great. So one example as part of their rotations. I think that would work really well. I know in the extension world, in the world of 4-H, I think that many extension educators were thinking about using it in a rotation and having a variety of different volunteers help as well. Something else to know is to know that extension offices are your partners. So if you haven't used the summer reading program in the past from Nebraska Extension, and you're looking to maybe develop a partnership, just reach out to your local extension office and see what type of a partnership you can develop. So every library creates different partnerships with their extension offices, but know that we're out there and that we're willing to help and be partners with all of you. So with that being said, if you have any additional questions or thoughts that come up, don't hesitate to reach out to Lynn, Cam, or myself. And we're really excited for this year's summer reading program and to hear what you do.